With 2024 quickly approaching, many will be hoping for some affordable housing solutions.
And perhaps Federal Housing Minister Sean Fraser can help to give us an idea of what the coming months hold. So we'd like to welcome Housing Minister Sean Fraser to our show. Welcome. It's so good to have you in person to speak about this. You, of course, are with the Prime Minister in the city today, making an announcement with Olivia Chow coming up later in the morning. But maybe talk about the Housing Accelerator Fund. I know some cities have already signed up and gotten, promise of the money, but what is Toronto set to get? Can you hint at what we might be in for?
Look, today's going to be a very exciting day. This is going to be by far the largest agreement that we've signed under the Housing Accelerator Fund to date. It'll be in the ballpark of hundreds of millions of dollars. But what's more exciting than the number of dollars is the number of homes that we expect to see. Literally, we're talking about tens of thousands of homes added to the city's stock over the course of the next decade. But through systemic reforms. This is not just paying for one building at a time. This is changing the way that Toronto will build homes with more density near transit, post-secondary institutions, more affordable housing, and other measures that will speed up the process of actually getting homes built in this city. It's very exciting, and I can't wait to share the good news later today.
Now, there are over 500 applications. You're still kind of going through. What were some of the criteria people had to meet to get this massive amount of money? So
it's important that you understand what the Housing Accelerator Fund is actually designed to do. It's designed to implement systemic reforms that will speed up the permitting process and allow more density. So what we've pushed cities to do is to say, for people who want to build a fourplex, for example, we don't want them to have to come and convince the city council that they should change the zoning rules. We want them to be able to build it as of right. If you own a piece of property during a housing crisis and want to build a home for your neighbors, you should be able to do that. We want to create complete communities where people have access to the services and opportunities that they need in areas that already have infrastructure. So we're having cities upzone significantly near transit systems that we have funded previously. What we've seen, to my delight, is a far greater level of ambition than I expected coming out of municipal leaders across the country. When we put federal funding on the table, we have seen cities respond and saying, you know what, we're going to be part of the solution to the housing crisis. And they've been implementing reforms, not just by talking about them, not just making promises, but actually changing the bylaws that exist at councils to make it easier to build homes in this country. This is going to be a major difference in terms of how homes get built right across Canada as a result of the agreements that we signed.
Yeah, and we know that right across Canada, our population is growing. I think we're up to like 43 million people, and we know new immigrants and people are coming to Canada. But when it comes to, I guess, provincially, do you think the province of Ontario is doing all it can, firing all cylinders when it comes to building housing, or do you think there are areas where improvement is needed?
I think every province, every city can do more. I've been pleased to see that the government in Ontario is aware of some of the challenges and wants to do more. I'm actually going to be meeting Minister Calandra later today to discuss certain areas that I think the province can do more to help build out housing stock. But my conversations with the province to date have been one where we both understand the nature and scale of the challenge and want to implement solutions. The different tools that we use to get there will be a topic of conversation. But right now, if we find partners, regardless of party, regardless of which level of government, who want to increase density, who want to build more homes, who want to make it cheaper for builders to actually build the homes we need so we can bring the cost of living down for families, they'll have a partner in the federal government.
Like you talk about cutting red tape, that's like part of like the Doug Ford vernacular. They always talk about cutting red tape. So why is it you're talking with municipal governments like Mayor Olivia Chow, not saying you shouldn't, she's the mayor of the city, but why isn't Premier Ford involved? It seems like the province isn't as involved in this as they should.
Look, when it comes to municipal reforms, there's no question that this is technically an area that falls within the jurisdiction of the province. Provinces could get rid of municipalities if they wanted to. They could legislate reforms, as we've actually seen in British Columbia, around transit-oriented development as well. But what we saw was a need that wasn't being met. We decided we were going to act rather than point fingers at any other level of government. And if we want to have provinces come on board, they would be most welcome to support these kinds of initiatives. But what we said we're going to do is we're going to use federal leadership and federal money to incentivize an increase in ambition in the way that cities are going to build homes. Toronto right now provides a great example. It's the biggest city in the country with literally the slowest permitting process in Canada. That's unacceptable. We are going to encourage new changes in a new system to speed up that process. We're going to say it can't take 10 years for the University of Toronto to get a residence built and have to shave hundreds of units off when we desperately need that housing stock. Also unacceptable. We can create a strategy strategy, or incentivize rather, the city to create a strategy to provide the housing for the people who are coming here. If it takes federal money to make it happen, it seems to me that that's a good bargain. When I look at the per unit cost, given the systemic reforms, it's going to be far cheaper to incentivize these kinds of change than it is going to be to simply pay for the construction of every home that needs to be built. We would never spend our way out of this problem, though we need to make investments. We need systemic change, and today's going to lead to that systemic change in the City of Toronto. Okay,
you mentioned the word speeding up, and we're seeing a housing crisis in the city in terms of sheltering all the asylum seekers that we are seeing. A lot of groups, advocates saying that, hey, the federal government has promised some money, but we're not seeing any change. These people are still sleeping on the streets. There are not enough places. There are some respite centers opening at the Better Living Care Center, but what's the government's response to that? I mean, $103 million are needed.
So we previously committed, when I was the immigration minister, a $212 million fund nationally with $97 million reserved for Toronto. That money flows when the city incurs expenses, and when they provide evidence the money's been spent, that money will flow. In addition, in order to respond to the acute nature that we're dealing with, and it's not acceptable to have people who are vulnerable on the streets without a roof over their head. All levels of government need to come together with a solution-oriented focus. We've worked with the Peel region to establish a centre to actually provide immediate protection for people while we sort out permanent solutions. But the federal government is never going to solve this problem for boardrooms in Ottawa. We need partners on the ground. So I'm looking forward to having continued conversations with Mayor Chow. We've discussed it before. We'll discuss it again to see what role the federal government may play to continue to support local efforts to make sure some of the most vulnerable people have a roof over their head at night.
So wait, so you're gonna talk to Chow soon, so she's gonna ask where's the money. So when's the money coming?
So we've already committed $97 million towards this initiative, and that money flows when the proof of expenditures has been submitted to us. So the money is there, it's on the books. To the extent there are other areas that we need to support the city's efforts, then we'll have those conversations to understand what role we may play. But it would not be accurate to say that we haven't stepped up with that kind of a contribution on the table and earmarked for the city's efforts.
Okay, Housing Minister Sean Fraser, appreciate your time this morning, and we'll be watching closely for that announcement with Mayor Chow later on this morning.
Thanks
so much, sir. Take care.